A very good afternoon to everyone, and very warm welcome to all of you for this session. The session is charting the path forward, the future of high street malls in a changing retail landscape. I'll take just a minute to set up the context of the discussion going forward. The retail sector in India has grown by some reports by 6% over the same period last year. By some account, retail leasing activity has grown by 114% between June-December over the same period in 21. Many international brands have also entered the market. As a result, the Indian retail landscape continues to evolve and embrace a diverse set of formats that coexist. These range from the traditional high street shopping malls, e-retail, and omni-channel retail. The retail scenario in India has seen the steady emergence of new new retail formats over the recent years. We are now seeing the emergence of high street malls, also referred to sometimes as experiential boulevards or neighborhood malls. These are a mix of high street and shopping malls, and we find a lot of neighborhood malls coming up in close vicinity of densely populated residential areas and or crowded high streets. These high street malls complement both the high street and shopping malls and offer retailers and shoppers greater choice and enhanced shopping experience. I will now pose the first question to the panel, and that is if we could get some insight in terms of how many high street stores versus mall stores that the brands actually have or actually think. So can you please?
Hi, I'm Rakesh Ajila. I head real estate and expansion for cult.fit Healthcare. So basically we have different formats like cult.fit and Fitness First Golds and Sugar Fit, and now we are coming up with our own sports shops also like Cult Sports. And when it goes to percentage ratio wise, if we count, overall our percentage and the what you call penetration in this market in the high streets are limited, around 7 to 10% I can count. But if you ask me the aspiration wise, it's very high because our aspirations to go to the neighborhood, to reach people, and this actually the complexities near to the neighborhood markets are very convenient to us. For example, Mumbai, if I see, for example, nearly 70% to 77% of India's high streets are in Mumbai. So in this segment, people want to rush to their house and then they want to work out and move on. The city-wise it changes. Hyderabad, Bangalore and Gurgaon behaves differently. Delhi, Mumbai and Chennai behaves differently. So segment-wise, neighborhood high street malls-wise we go. So our, as for current status is less actually in the occupancy, but definitely aspiration-wise is very high because more convenient to us.
So from the India perspective, high street malls are coming and going in the country. Not going literally, but in terms of either the concept, they fail at the concept stage, or if they come up, they're not very successful for various reasons. And as far as Bestseller is concerned, as long as the mall has the right offering, whether it's high street or a regular air-conditioned mall, it has all the elements which make a successful mall. We are good to go right from day one. And referring to your question as to what is the percentage between high street stores versus mall stores, I think I can safely say that we have about 10 to 12% of high street stores, and major concentration is malls.
Yeah, hi, Sahil. See, like what Sumit have said, our situation is exactly opposite to it. We have around 10 to 15% of our stores are in malls. Rest, all of them are standalones. Okay, so what we are in this topic is more of the standalone, what I say malls, high street. So if I see like mall high street, at least for our category with CDIT, we see it's more successful than definitely a mall and to a large extent to a high street as well. Because what we feel, I think the definition what I will put for a high street mall is a high street which is well organized. I think that's the definition in a one line what I feel can be a high street mall. Okay, so in that way it makes better sense because it gives the advantage what a mall have in terms of better what I say management and parking, at least some organized way that high street and that complete structure is been done. Unlike a normal high street where you most of the customer faces parking challenges and all those things. And definitely on the pocket of a retailer, at least I might not have to pay that much high cam for a high street mall as compared to a mall.
So what has your experience been?
Yeah, so I'm Satish here. So speaking about lifestyle and home center formats, we have less than 10% of our stores in high street malls because we are largely, been in large format malls and national mall players. However, our experience has been good. If you look at the Vijayawada experience where we have a complex and there is a set of retailers and it's been doing very well since inception. Likewise, we have seen our entry into a high street mall in Patiala, which has also augured very well for us. So it is helpful in terms of a lower capex outlay for the developer to build a strip mall or a high street mall. And it provides opportunity for smaller geographies like Bilaspur, Kadapa, where large mall constructs would not be feasible or viable to the developers. And like Sahil mentioned, even the cost of the rent and CAM would be a little more under control and would make business economic sense for the retailers like Lifestyle and Home Center to, be part of such high street malls.
Right.
So, in terms of our experience of Lifestyle and Home Center, we believe that the smaller towns which do not have the propensity for 5 lakh or a 10 lakh square feet mall, definitely there is an opportunity for these kind of high street malls to come up. And enterprising builders could possibly leverage this as an opportunity. The construct and the model could be a low cost one compared to a conventional mall. And from the customer experience point of view, it's better than a high street because there is more organized parking. There is also some kind of a zoning with, a little bit of a food court and a food offering, which makes the dwell time for the customer better, the experience for the complete family more wholesome, because the combination of fashion and other kind of formats of retail can be put together. So I guess we are seeing emergence of this kind of high street malls in smaller towns, as well as extension or new markets in some of the larger cities. So I guess that's a trend which we will have to wait and see how it evolves.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, and I think one of the categories which has traditionally been very dominant on the high street has been food. So Indranil, if you'll shed some light on the F&B component or F&B brands and how they're doing in.
Yeah, hi. So of the 600 outlets that we have currently, 30% of them are in the malls. By malls, I mean the conventional malls. And for our format, actually a mall format works. Right? The balance outlets that we have in the high streets, so we can actually do a comparison between the high street outlets and the high street malls, actually, rather than not comparing it with the conventional malls. Because currently the high street outlets that we have our own challenges out there. So of course, as far as amenities is concerned, as Satish correctly said, parking, toilets and other facilities. For us, like an F&B brand, we would require electric load, right, which sometimes get difficult to get in a high street, maybe exhaust points and all. So as far as the amenities is concerned, these are high street malls. We are there in a couple of them, and we find them to be successful. Also, the nearby catchments actually attracts a lot of online deliveries as well, which may not be possible in a conventional mall, right? So that is actually working for us, and we are looking forward to open more of our outlets in these high street malls.
There are some categories. There are some categories which are traditionally not present in the high streets, and therefore by default in high street malls. Tarandeep, like your Bounce, for example, the gaming zones and the.
Hi, so I represent Bounce. Bounce is an indoor action adventure zone, which is 40,000 square feet plus. So typically when we look at a high street mall kind of scenario, to get such a large format space is never financially viable. So I'm assuming all the big metros, we see Mumbai, we see Bangalore, the high streets, and the small size malls which come in these high streets. For us to get that kind of a zone is not at all viable. So our obvious preference is the malls. But what we've learned is, so internationally there are 40 Bounce venues. Australia has 17, and all the 17 are in high street malls from the international perspective. So these are these huge, they have department stores, they have outlet zones with multiple discount outlets, they have multiple entertainment options, all housed in one area. So that is something which we are also keenly exploring in the country. But like you rightly said, is India market yet has to come out with those kind of experiential large formats which will then become destination zones. Like whenever you go abroad, I'm sure all of you plan a trip to go to a zone which will have all the discount stores and large formats. So that is something which I think can work. On the contrary, when I speak about entertainment, that has completely changed. So if you go to any metro, you will see any high street or high street mall destination, you will see smaller FECs have started mushrooming. So they may not be bang on the main street, they may be on the side streets, or you will see any high street mall, even if it's medium sized or mid sized, for sure it will have at least a 4,000 to 5,000 square feet FEC. So they understand the importance, that the FEC gives that persona to the shopping center as well.
No, that's a very interesting point that you make, but Arun, footwear has always sort of dominated the high street market, and I would imagine that in order to actually give your shopper or your consumer a better experience, you would actually look towards moving into high street malls, which actually organize the things. What are your views on that?
Myself, Arun Pillai. I represent Metro Brands. So in our portfolio, we have 9 brands with us. So in malls, normally we represent individual brands in the malls. Whereas in high streets also we do apply the same formula. But when it comes to this high street kind of malls, where we are trying to work out a new concept. In fact, recently we are brainstorming internally with the management whether we can do a multi-brand outlets representing all the brands put together. Taking a bigger square feet stores and try all our brands within that itself. So because these are all still evolving concepts, still emerging, like some of the panelists earlier said, in last 5-6 years, there's all like neighborhood malls which pops up, and still it's been tried and tested. So what we don't want, in fact, we are trying our presence over those also, but now as a lesson, what we learned is that it doesn't make sense for us to put all the 9 brands across in such places.
Yeah. So just to add to that, then what are the brands out of that basket of 9 brands that you would look at for a high street mall? Because some markets and some localities would suit some of the brands, not all of them. So which ones would you favor in that?
So for example, in our portfolio, we have Metro, Mochi, Crocs, Walkway, Fila, Proline, Vans, Flip Flop, Biofood. So in such places, because our strength of our brands is Metro, Mochi, and followed by Crocs, and Flip Flop and Fila to a certain extent. So basically, we may play with some shopping shop concept within that. but majority 70% it will be like Metro Mochi, and remaining 30% I will contribute with Fila, Proline, or those basic concepts.
Right.
Yeah.
So, given
So
this
just
brings-
another thing
Sorry.
to add on is, as on date, we are almost like 800 plus stores. Just we crossed 800 stores, out of which the percentage-wise in high street we have around 10 to 12%, I would say. That is the presence what we have in the high street. So now, again, it's been, as I said earlier, it's been tried and tested. So now we want to come back with this formula, whether we can do a multi-brand outlet in those kind of, high street malls.
Right.
So that's we are just
Yeah.
working on.
That's an interesting insight, and we'll come back to the footwear category for more stuff. But I'd like to move to Mr. Kansal. And so, what I'd like to understand from you is that you've got a large presence, even with the 10-12% that you say are in the high street, right? That's a large percent. How do you find the comparison in terms of performance on certain parameters like average trading density or your spending quotient in terms of the average ticket price, etc. How do you find that comparison, the financial comparison between the high street malls and the regular malls? Is there a bigger conversion on the high street? Is it a higher conversion on the high street as compared to the malls?
See, in my opinion, it's very tough to compare a high street mall and a mall on these parameters, because when you talk about a mall, definitely footfall will be high, then conversion will be less. But when you talk about a high street mall, so thus people who are interested in your brand, they will be very less window shopping kind of. So the conversion will tend to definitely be higher. And in terms of the TD, TD is more a factor of a catchment and then the factor of a mall or a high street. But yes, if I really see, it's these two things will have a bigger impact on the profitability and the sustainability. And I would say the backup plan kind of. So when you are in a mall versus a standalone or a high street mall, I think a high street mall tend to be more profitable in some way, because not of the sale. If I have to compare apple to apple, definitely mall will tend to do better sale in some way than to a high street mall. But high street mall will be more profitable because there will definitely be some advantage on the expenses and the occupancy cost and all that. And in terms of what as a brand, what we always prefer to be on a high street or a high street mall, that's the at a percentage show. If I have to do something of my own to pull specifically crowd for me, it will be very tough for me to do that in a mall. So as a brand, it's post-COVID, CDIT have moved more towards a destination kind of a category than to a need. So earlier it used to be more of impulse. You want to buy, you see, you buy. Today it's a need. So which have made a big difference to us. So when it's a need base, and if it's a standalone, we get a better visibility because of the impulse moving crowd and all that, as compared to a mall where you are dependent on the mall to bring the footfall, and out of that you have to take a pie of yours and then you convert them and then the ticket size and all that.
Right.
So it's more on the profitability and definitely to a backup plan in terms of you have to do something of your own.
Right.
On that way, yes, these two different set of real estate we can compare, at least for my category.
Right. So
Also, sorry. I want to add, in a high street mall can be, the closest comparison will be a high street. So over there, a customer is rarely a browser. They know what they want and they are coming specifically for that category or your brand. So that would eventually mean that your conversions will be higher than in a regular mall, because there will be a lot of browsers than the real consumer. Maybe real consumer in the sense, while they want to buy, they might not want to buy your category at that particular day. So that's how your mall stores conversions drop drastically versus a high street or a high street mall.
Right. Yeah.
And as far as trading densities are concerned, it's a factor of the size which you operate in, really, and the catchment in terms of what kind of numbers you're doing.
So the point that you're making is that given that the sizes in the high street sometimes are compromised as compared to the malls where you have larger stores, so trading densities might not be the right parameter to compare.
I wouldn't say compromise because each category, each brand would have their own requirements. Plus, there will be a potential of that market or that catchment. I mean, we do it a lot. We have a minimum size requirement, but our maximum sizes also can, vary. So, I mean, I can operate a store of 1,500 square foot. I can also operate a store of 6,000 square foot. Sorry, in the same market, in terms of, for example, a Mumbai market or a Delhi market, I would have my flagship of 6,500 square foot. As well, I will have a regular 1,500, 2,000 square foot store also. That would really depend on the potential of that particular catchment.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, just to add, so like trading density, a particular trading density might be a bad trading density when I talk about Mumbai. But if a same trading density I'm getting in some small town, Barnala, or probably somewhere in UP, like Nawa Shahar or somewhere, Punjab and all that, it might be a very good trading density. Right. So all those things, at least in our business,
or vice versa, actually.
It very subjective one.
Yeah. So no, I understand that point. I think it's a function of how many bills you cut and what is the size of those bills. In a smaller town, that might be lower, and therefore the trading density automatically will differ. So yes, fair point. But coming to the footwear category, essentially, what has your experience been on this?
See, basically, we are discussing here malls versus high street versus high street malls. This is the third parameter we are discussing here. Basically, in high street malls, what I understand is, basically, it is a common place, belongs to one promoter where you get a set of all the brands mix. And as a retailer, we are coordinating with one, again, developer. Again, not with the individual, like in high streets, we have to deal with the individual owners. But here, the case is, but the only difference between the ambience and the experience, what you get in a malls to high street malls, slightly differ case-to-case basis. Because in some high street malls, you get air-conditioned malls also. But in certain high street malls, you don't have air-conditioned also.
Right.
So there are difference, pros and cons also. But again, it all boils down to the point where the consumer, it's like a neighborhood kind of mall where the consumer feels ease, where they go and find all the right brand mix at the right cost. Right. So in that category, we have to be present in all the, touch points where the customer feels like we have to be.
So if you were to go to a certain market where there was a mall was not available, but you had a choice between the high street and a high street mall, what is it that would influence you, given also that a high street mall necessarily takes the chaos out of the high street? So it affords you parking, it affords the customer better circulation, movement inside the mall, it gives you toilets and hygiene, and so on and so forth. So that being the obvious one, right? What is it that would, but the brand visibility on the high street, you get good storefront, adds to the brand stature, brand presence, etc. So between this, how would you take that call as to whether I'm going into a high street mall or a high street?
See, basically, how we push in ourselves in all the three buckets is, in malls, normally we put all our, 100% full sale merchandise, other than the sale period. So there will be no discounted products at any point of time. Only during the sale period, or we go there. But in high streets, we have the flexibility to have mix of both. Yeah. Whereas in high street malls, we always play around like 70-30%. So like 70% will be the full pricing and 30% will be the discount pricing. And throughout the year, we have the flexibility to play around as per the needs of the customer. We have that upper hand to play around as per the festive season, or how it is. Right. So during the festive season, we normally put all our fresh arrivals more, and bring down the, sale point. Whereas in malls, we have to go with that, throttle point, there are some defined parameters which we have to meet.
Yeah.
Whereas in high street malls, we have that flexibility to play around as per our strengths.
Rakesh, what are your views on this?
So, see, my industry is a little bit different because we are more into the day-to-day habit. So people get up in the early, they will either go to the gym, otherwise run around, and all the operation will start early morning. So when it comes to high street, otherwise I compare more than going to the bigger malls. So high street versus the other market, what I'm getting in the neighborhood supply or inventory. Maybe my preference as of now a bit biased towards the individual buildings and like that. Reason is I can easily access, customers can come in any time. If I have to go to the mall, initially what happens, operation will go smooth, all the things clear. There are some malls where we opened in the high street. It's a challenge we face. For the 5,500 square feet, there are 20 landlords. So a lot of investors there. Decision making is different. Early morning access is different. Again, going to all the elevators to the space. And also the fitness-wise, the overall fitness and sports, both the verticals, maybe in going forward, maybe they looked in a different way. Maybe while the construction of the complexes itself, maybe there should be separate access and this thing, because our operational hours are a little bit different. So that's the one particular point where we can do. Catchment analysis wise, if I go, it's very clean and clear feedback, especially after COVID. So people want to go to the neighborhood center wherever it is there, because in our cult especially we have access, people can take membership, go to any center and access to those centers also. So that's how it's coming. People who are traveling around, they are taking a different zone, because I had seen many people who travel in Hyderabad and Gurgaon. They book their hotels close to the center so that they don't want to miss their day-to-day workout. So entire culture is changing. Micro market wise, if you are asking me, like when it comes to the construction, the where it is access is there, locality, we actually struggle to fit what exactly the format where it will fit. Maybe for the group access formats, and some places it does very good. So then we go GX. Then nowadays most of the places, both the hybrid formats will come in. All the new centers coming with the group access as well as this thing also. And especially when it comes to premium location, like maybe Sovaju, maybe in Bangalore, Indranagar belt, we go for fitness first, elegant formats. Likewise, everything is different. So somewhere I feel that overall, if I look into the neighborhood market structure-wise, consumer wear is definitely fluctuating. Somewhere infra-wise, we are struggling to adopt ourselves, where actually the work in the initial stage of construction should be streamlined.
Right. So coming back to you, Indranil, what would could we pass the in the F&B category, not necessarily WOW, but in F&B category, you operate across all formats: food courts, malls, high street retail, etc. What is the actual challenges that you face, which are taken care of by the high street malls? For example, operating on the high street versus operating in a high street mall, in a high street mall environment. Is that better in any way?
Yes, it's better, only if they don't charge us with a revenue share.
Okay, so this is purely a commercial.
On a serious note, yes. As for the amenities that we get in a high street mall, would always be better than a standalone store. Also, we can look at doing a bigger format out there. So currently we are operating with 4 brands. We have a Chinese along with a Momo, chicken, and we have recently added a kulfi also. So we are getting into this Wow Eats concept wherein we combine all the 4 brands under one roof. And it's always, getting this kind of a size and format is difficult in a conventional mall in the food courts. So of course, high street malls is one option wherein we can get that. Also, maybe on the ground floor, because typically in a conventional you have your presence only in the food courts, right? So this obviously is a point which of course draws us more our attention towards high street malls. Over, I would say, only the standalone stores if you compare.
Yeah. Sumit, you said when we were talking earlier today, you said something very interesting. You said that as a fashion brand, you prefer to be in malls because it's got the right environment and the right tenant mix, and also a higher footfall. But there are some markets that you would enter through the high street or a good high street retail mall, which might give you the right operating environment. So would that be your strategy going into maybe smaller towns where malls are not available, etc.? Like Satish also mentioned that.
So our first preference would always be a mall, whether it's a regular, fully air-conditioned mall or a high street mall. However, in the Indian context, as we speak, 90% of the high street malls in this country are outlet malls, right? And some are successful, some are not. Some are beginning to, start operations, and so we are waiting and watching. However, it's not that we don't have high street stores. We do have high streets. Before I mentioned that about 10% of our stores are in high streets, the key high street markets. We will not shy away from going to a high street or a high street mall or a mall. We will evaluate the market purely on merit. If there is a mall in the city which does well than the high street, we would rather go put in our monies in that mall rather than just having another store in the high street of that same city. But sometimes, in an operational mall, you don't get spaces. Then you have to look at alternate if you want to be in those markets. So, yeah, it's a mixed strategy. I mean, there's no one size that fits all when you look at expansion for your stores. So we will evaluate purely on a merit basis.
So what I hear you, sorry.
Yeah, so while we firmly believe that getting traffic to our mall stores is much easier than high street stores, because overall the mall traffic is much more than a high street because of various conveniences and other elements which make up the mall. So yeah, I mean, if you want to ask my preference, I will want to be in a mall which does well, and rather than being on a high street. But yes, if there is a potential in that high street in the same market, we don't mind being there.
Right. So Satish, you seemed to suggest earlier on that the strategy that you would follow would necessarily take into account high street malls, because they will be in areas where you don't find, in cities where you don't find big malls, and high street malls will give you large contiguous spaces for large stores, large format stores. So having said that, what are the improvements in the high street mall product as it exists today that you would like to see?
See, many of these high street malls are, first-time developers who have been largely into housing or commercial, and this would be their first venture. A few of them seek professional help from professional mall management and mall zoning agencies and take their support. So that product comes out a little better, and we have had some good experience of that. In some cases, the developer themselves feel that they can do it by, with their own small team. And that's where they seem to make some mistakes in terms of zoning. So that's an area of improvement which we can look at in terms of placement of brands, in terms of adjacencies, and the adequacy of parking, the management of those kind of amenities. So these are things which possibly, if they seek professional support from professionals in the field of mall development or mall management and zoning, then they could do a lot better in terms of right sizing their space, getting the zoning right, getting the adjacencies right, and leasing it at the right. The other problem in certain geographies is this strata sold model. So where some of them like to monetize their spaces by selling it off, which leads to a very fragmented leasing methodology. And that has seen several such high street malls fail also. Right. Although they have been located very well, but they have failed. So these are the two things which, if they are done better, can give better products to the retailers.
So, yeah, thanks. So, Tarandeep, just to move forward on that, for a category like yours, what would get you to, come into a high street mall?
So for us, honestly, the parameters between a mall versus high street mall would remain the same. So all the deltas, all the ROI factors would absolutely be the same. And if I compare it to a metro like Mumbai, on paper itself, a high street mall will not justify the kind of returns, compared to a normal mall.
Right.
But we've been exploring other cities. So for example, in Ahmedabad, we've narrowed down a location which is on a high street. But we would be creating a standalone location, a standalone venue there. So in those cases, we know the delta for us, in terms of outlay, the rentals could be maybe 40 to 50% higher than vis-a-vis a normal mall, in that area. But then the ROI is worth that amount of risk. But if you look at a metro or typical high street mall first, I don't think it will be a wish list to get that kind of a size, and it will be very prohibitive. The rentals will be very prohibitive.
Right. So, Sahil, would you like to add to that before we perhaps go into a small sum up?
See, in my opinion, at least for our category, high street always makes sense. Because see, generally what we see, the kind of a capex or anything what generally in terms of the investment, what goes in a mall versus high streets are not majorly, and there is much of difference because it's generally only couple of things. But operationally, it will be more viable to operate a high street than a mall because things are in your control. There are a lot of things in a mall which you have to be a part of that big establishment. You have to go with it. But a high street are more, you are the king. You can make a decision about what you want for your business.
Right. So,
Sorry, just to add to what Sahil was saying is, see, out of 800 stores in our portfolio, 40% are in malls, remaining 50% are in high street, remaining 10% are in these high street malls. So basically, we initially, before 3-4 months back, we used to operate omni business also from all the malls, etc., mall stores also. Whereas there are some operational challenges also we have because there are some restricted timings where the pickup has to happen, the return has to happen, etc. But now recently what we started doing in last 3 months is we started shifting all the omni things from the malls to all these high street and high street malls, high street kind of malls, where we don't encounter any of the operational challenges. Whereas the pickup and delivery timelines, everything becomes ease at the store level, and it is all very close because any of the nearest mall, we have a high street store also nearby. So this points takes care of. So currently we are in process of shifting the omni business from the malls doors to the nearest high street or high street malls. Right. So that's the transition which we are currently doing.
That's interesting. So as we come to the end of this session, and I take this opportunity to sum it up, and please feel free to add in case I'm missing out on something. I think the key point that I'm taking out of this is that all formats will continue to coexist. I think the opportunity that I heard from everybody is more in the area of, lower cost than regular malls in terms of CAM, etc., and more security versus the high street, better parking as per the high street thing. So the chaos of the high street is sort of taken away, and at the same time you get some benefits in terms of hygiene, parking, circulation, etc., that is normally paid, you find in malls, but at a much lower cost, right? It also makes sense for the developers to actually be, taking away certain costs, with extra services or extra heavily loaded services, more of air conditioning, etc., etc. So it's making sense for the developers also because this is capital intensive. I think the delivery of these malls will be, of the high street malls will be faster in comparison to this thing, because they'll always work on a financial model where some part is sold and some part, like the retail part, is on pure lease, while the offices or residential, if they are passed or the mixed use, will be sold. So there's a certain certainty going forward. I think, of course, like in every case, the developers have to improve their offering thing. The opportunity also, I think, exists in tier 2 and distant markets, as Satish mentioned, that those are not, they don't have the option of going into a mall. So rather than go on to the high street, sometimes the brand will, and this is something that was also endorsed by Sumit, that only in the case of non-availability of a mall, then certain brands would make a move into a high street mall rather than a high street itself, provided they got the right store, the right area, this thing. If there's anything else, gentlemen, that you'd like to add, happy to this thing. Thank you all so much for a great session and very insightful session. Thank you.